Good evening and welcome to the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo Virtual Community Town Hall. Thank you for taking the time to learn about our region's response to COVID-19. My name is Jillian McDonald and I will be your moderator for this evening. Today we will be talking about our organization's ongoing response to COVID-19 and taking questions from residents. Our panelists for tonight's Town Hall include Mayor Don Scott Davis, the RMWB's Director of Emergency Management, our two representatives at the Alberta Legislature, Fort McMurray-Lac-La-Biche MLA Layla Goodrich and Fort McMurray-Wood Buffalo MLA Tanny Yao, Jamie Doyle, the municipality's Chief Administrative Officer, Kevin Weidlich, the President and CEO of Wood Buffalo Economic Development Corporation, Kareem Zarifa, the Executive Director of the Oil Sands Community Alliance, from the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, Field Officer Ian Fox and First Nations Field Officer Chad Santo, Simon Younger, Vice President of Production for Imperial Oil. Alberta Health Services are extremely busy and unfortunately are not available for this evening's call. Mayor Don Scott is going to give some opening remarks, followed by our Director of Emergency Management, Scott Davis. If you want to ask a question of one of our panelists, hit *3 on your phone and you will be directed to an operator who will take your question. Now I'd like to turn the floor over to Mayor Don Scott.
Thank you, and I'm here tonight on behalf of all of my council colleagues as well, and I'll be taking questions, but I'm very grateful to both our MLAs for being here. I want to give a huge thank you to all those who are on the front lines of this pandemic, including everyone at the hospital, our Northern Lights Regional Hospital. That's all our doctors and nurses. We know that there's many challenges that you're facing, and there's going to be more challenges coming, and we certainly are very grateful as a community for all that you're doing. If you do not get your question asked tonight, please email it to us, and we're going to be getting to those questions as well. And you can email us at townhall@rmwb.ca. And I'd finally just like to conclude with acknowledging the fact that this call is taking place on Treaty 8 and unceded Métis territory. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Scott. Up next, Scott Davis, Director of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Good evening, everyone. Earlier this afternoon, Alberta's Chief Medical Officer announced that there are now 2,158 confirmed cases in Alberta, including 107 in the North Zone. The province's geospatial online map is experiencing service disruptions and is not reflecting an accurate breakdown of cases in specific zones. So Alberta Health Services did not provide updated cases for Wood Buffalo this afternoon. Yesterday, Dr. Hinshaw announced a new outbreak at Kearl Oil Sands project, with 3 people connected to the project testing positive and 6 more individuals currently isolating awaiting test results. AHS continues to work closely to implement outbreak procedures at the site. I know this news is troubling to hear, but I want to assure you that our region remains well positioned to deal with these cases. I'd like to thank Alberta Health Services, the camp operators, and their employees for their immediate response and diligence. Last week, AHS announced new testing criteria, expanding testing to all Albertans experiencing COVID-19 related symptoms. The province completed 2,779 tests over the last 24 hours. Premier Kenney also shared projection modeling which indicated that Alberta will see its peak of COVID-19 cases in mid-May. With Alberta continuing to have one of the highest testing rates per capita in the world, we can expect to see an increase in cases in the regions in the weeks ahead. With warmer weather in the forecast, I want to remind everyone to follow public health orders and municipal closures. All parks in the region are closed, however, pathways and trails remain open. If you're using these trails and pathways, you must practice physical distancing and keep at least 2 meters between yourself and others. Service changes, updates, and community support resources are available on the municipal website at rmwb.ca/COVID-19. We're also sharing this information regularly on our Facebook page at RM Wood Buffalo. Remember, the best thing anyone can do to protect themselves from COVID-19 is to practice physical distancing, wash your hands regularly, and follow all other public health measures that AHS has put in place. I'd now like to turn it back to our moderator, Jillian, to facilitate questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Scott, as well as Mayor Scott. Now we're going to turn to our question queue. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *3 on your phone and you'll be connected to an operator. You can ask your questions live on the line or have us read them out for you. So let's get started. Our first question this evening comes from Tony. Tony asks, I have been hearing about a vulnerable persons registry. Who is this for and how do we get on it? Scott, could you take that, please?
Thank you. The VPR is available to residents living alone within the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo who experience severe difficulty with any of the following: mobility, vision, or hearing, developmental, intellectual, cognitive, or mental health, or residents who require electricity for life-sustaining equipment such as life support, oxygen, dialysis, etc. Please note those living with continuous 24-hour assistance who are not left unassisted for periods of time do not qualify for BPR. More information can be found at rmwb.ca/VPR, and including at that site is frequently asked questions that will help you understand the program better.
Thank you so much, Scott. Again, *3 on your phone will get you into the question queue. Our next question comes live on the line from Pradeep. Pradeep, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, Scott. Hi, everyone. We are worst hit and double whammy after the fire, and we need a tax break on a municipal bill and a gas and electricity bill. So we have to work towards it, and do we have some plans to do that?
Thank you so much for your question. Mayor Scott will take that.
Yes, we've taken the first step, which is a deferral. So it has been deferred. The taxes, the municipal taxes, have been deferred until September 30th. So we're going to keep looking at both utilities and taxes as we go forward, but we recognize the difficulty people are in, but that happened at the last council meeting. So we're very cognizant of what's happening, and stay tuned to see if we make other changes. But for now, there is a tax deferral until September 30th.
Thank you so much, Mayor Scott. Our next question comes from Mary. Mary asks, is the infection rate curbing, and are the rules going to be relaxed soon? Scott, could you take that, please?
Hi, Mary. Great question. I haven't looked at the statistics for today, but what I would continue to rely on AHS to provide that direction. And we don't want to let off the gas, so to speak. Going back to my earlier messaging about physical distancing, washing hands, covering coughs, and not touching the face are still strategies that we want to enforce as we follow through. If we don't, we'll see what's called a second wave, and that creates more problems.
Thank you so much for that response, Scott. Again, *3 on your phone if you wish to ask a question of one of our panelists. Our next question comes live on the line from Travis. Travis, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hey, I'm just wondering about a little more clarity on the Ohv ban. I read an article there yesterday, I think it was, they were banning OHVs, and now today I read another one saying that the ban was lifted. I'm just wondering if there's any clarity on that.
Thank you so much for your question, Travis. Jamie will take that.
Thank you, Travis. This is a ministerial order, so it's provincial. It's commonly referred to as the OHV ban. This came into effect on April 15th, 2 o'clock, which effectively restricts the usage of our municipal OHV staging areas. Since we don't have any municipal OHV trails in the urban service area or within the city limits, the staging areas are only used by OHVs to access trails that are in a forest protection area where OHV use is restricted under this ministerial order, except in certain circumstances like industrial use or traditional use by Indigenous persons. The staging areas will remain open for people to park and access trails for non-motorized uses for OHV access for non-recreational use. So that ban is still in place.
Thank you for that, Jamie. MLA Yao would like to also weigh in.
Hi, thank you so much for the question. The The off-highway vehicle ban was put in place because if we were to get a forest fire now in our province, we would be that would contribute to us being overwhelmed, especially with the current climate. That said, also remember that in 2016, around this time of year, it was tinder dry, and down south it is drier. But to that effect, though, a lot of people have expressed concerns about this because there's no other better way to isolate yourself and go out into the middle of the woods. And they are relooking this to consider the regional differences, like the fact that we here in Fort McMurray are surrounded by snow. So they are looking into that to see if it is feasible. So they are working with their local forestry officials. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next question is anonymous. Anonymous asks, what extra precautions are you taking to ensure outside travelers are staying outside of Fort McMurray? Scott, could you take this, please?
Thank you for the question. At present time, the direction from AHS is not to restrict travel. We also understand that in the region we have a number of vehicles that travel between north and south on 63, and we rely on those delivering fuel, food, and other necessities. So we have to be very cognizant about restricting people and travel that we depend on.
Thank you so much, Scott. Again, *3 on your phone if you would like to ask a question of one of our panelists. Our next question comes from Harvey. Harvey asks, were the Curl guys that tested positive on site or at the Wapasu camp? Simon, could you take this, please?
Yeah, I sure can. Jill, can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you just fine, thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for the question. Maybe I'll just start by offering some general comments about what happened yesterday at our site. And let me first start by just saying there's really nothing more important to us than the safety and health of our workforce and the communities in which we operate. And this is really our priority as we continue to take actions to prevent further spread of COVID-19. So what I can confirm for you yesterday is that we had notification of a positive COVID-19 case, and this was actually of an individual who had been in self-isolation at the camp since the week prior as part of the protocols that we have in place if people were to show symptoms. We've also had a second case on site today. And we also have a small number of cases that are with folks who are away from the site but have some connection back to Curl. What I can tell you is that we're taking this situation very seriously. We've completed contact tracing for all of these individuals, and I would tell you that we continue to work and coordinate very closely with Alberta Health Services as we manage through this issue. Of course, our thoughts are with these individuals who are impacted, and we certainly hope that they make a full recovery, and we're staying in very close contact with them and looking after those folks who are at the camp. Maybe it's appropriate for me just to make a quick comment about some of the proactive and preventative measures that we have taken at the site, and really they go all the way back to early March when we proactively implemented it and have sustained a number of stringent measures to ensure the safety of our people and the safety of our camp. So we have instituted pre-travel access screening and temperature screening at our flight centres for anybody boarding flights to come up to work at the camps and at our site. We've enhanced cleaning and sterilisation. We're enforcing social distancing in the workplace and at the camp. We've got daily temperature monitoring for all individuals prior to the start of each shift and at the camp. We've significantly reduced our non-essential workforce, substantially fewer people at site and as a result in camps as well, really doing only critical work at the site at the moment as a result of that. And we've got an isolation wing established at the camp and have had now for many weeks. In fact, we put really all of these proactive processes in place well before they became government mandates or provincial requirements and guidelines. So we continue to very actively work with the government and Alberta Health Services to ensure the safety, health and well-being of all of our folks working at site, and as I mentioned, doing everything we can to protect the community at large. I think with all that, I've answered the question as well, that the positive cases were at the time isolating at the camp.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that detailed response, Simon. I'm sure that'll clear up a lot of questions people have. Our next question comes live on the line from Dennis. Dennis, your line is open. Please go ahead. Dennis, can you hear us? Okay, I can ask the question for Dennis. Dennis's question was, he would like some clarification on the fire ban. Jamie, could you address that, please?
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Dennis. The government of Alberta has implemented a provincial fire ban in the forest protection area, provincial parks, and protected areas that came into effect April 15th. This ban is not in place for the urban service area of Fort McMurray, so the city proper. The ban that was issued covers the municipality, excluding the Fort McMurray city. This is for some early preparedness. As it remains, the rmwb is the authority for open-air burning within the city. So we have not issued a fire ban for the urban service area at this time, and the following remains permitted within the urban service area. So you can still have your residential backyard fire pits and the portable fire pits used as indicated by the manufacturer.
Thank you so much for that, Jamie. Again, if you wish to ask a question of our panelists, please hit *3 on your phone. Oh, MLA Goodridge would like to add something about the fire ban.
I just want to add in that our forest officers will be recommending a phase-in of the OHV and fire ban restrictions based on weather conditions and throughout the spring coming up. So this information will probably change in the next few days, but we're working on something.
Thank you so much for that. Our next question comes from Tom. Tom is live on the line. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello. I would just, I have a concern. The people here in Wood Buffalo are doing a fantastic job of minding the parks and everything else and making sure people are keeping the appropriate distances so as nobody catches illnesses or spreads illnesses and so on and so forth. I happen to be, had to go out today, and of course there's not a whole lot of facilities to shop at in Fort McMurray, and I went down to the local Walmart with the intent of going in and picking up the items I needed. But when I got there was that many people inside, I couldn't actually stay 2 meters away from anybody. So I had to leave. And, there's families, children, and everything in the store. I'm sure the management is trying to do what they can down there, but what are we doing to control those places? I mean, we have people working in there that, are as important to their families as the doctors and nurses and everybody else. And they should be given some respect as well as far as social distancing is concerned, and that people should have respect for them and only go in so there's a number of people in there that doesn't create such a congestion. Sort of long-winded. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you so much for your question, Tom. Scott, could you maybe talk about the concern that he has with the lack of social distancing at grocery stores, maybe educate the public?
Thank you for your question, Tom. And we've got a number of public health inspectors that are visiting establishments as well as our bylaw officers. I myself have visited a number of businesses as well. And have noticed that for most of them, there is directional arrows in different aisleways as well as spots to stand on at checkout and trying to do that. However, I'm hearing what you're saying in that some people don't follow those. So we continue to work with the various businesses in the municipality and educate them and try to continue to reinforce AEHS's guidelines. There is the option, however, if you do have a concern, to go to alberta.ca/COVID, and there's an opportunity to put a complaint in there. But however, we are actively involved in the community, educating different businesses, and I've been pleased for most of them complying with the direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. Again, if you wish to ask a question of our panelists, please hit *3 on your phone. Our next question comes live on the line from David. David, your line is open. Please go ahead. David, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi, David. Go ahead with your question.
My question is, with the gas prices in Fort McMurray, why aren't we the same as the rest of Alberta?
Thank you so much for your question, David. Mayor Scott will take that.
Yeah, it's something that I've inquired about before. So the municipality does not determine the gas prices in this region, and I've inquired with the different ministries, the provincial ministries, and I've got the following answer that I'm just simply going to read out that I've received from the province, and my colleagues, the MLAs, may want to supplement that. But gasoline prices are determined based on supply and demand, which vary between regions, municipalities, and neighborhoods. The cost of crude oil, the cost of refining, the cost of turning crude oil into gasoline, refinery availability, regional seasonal demand, and local retail considerations such as operating costs and competition also impact the price of fuel at the pump. For these reasons, remote centers with smaller populations will often have higher fuel prices due to distance and refineries and smaller delivery volumes. Should you have any concerns about pricing at a gasoline retailer, you can contact Service Alberta, which is responsible for investigating consumer complaints across Alberta. A complainant can call 1-877-427-4088 or email ciu.north@gov.ab.ca. So once again, it's not something the municipality has control over. It's something that I've heard a fair amount about and something I'm concerned about. That's the response I've received from the province. And just going to check, the MLAs are indicating that that's the same information they have as well. So there you go.
Thank you so much, Mayor Scott. Again, *3 on your phone will get you into the question queue to ask a question of one of our panelists. Our next question comes live on the line from Anne. Anne, your line is open. Please go ahead. Hi, Anne, can you hear us? Okay,
Hello?
I'll read it. Oh, Anne, are you there?
Hello? Yeah, hello?
Hi, do you have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I applied for CRB. You listen to me? You okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Please ask your question.
Yeah, I applied for CRB, that government money on April 6th. So it's been 11 days now. I got no money, direct deposit. I cannot reach them, and I called to CRA. They said to me, you have to call 7218. I called to Canada, the other numbers. They just say, no, this number, but this number is unreachable. So even if I wait for a couple hours, still I get kicked out. So what should I do? Is there any...
Thank you so much for your question, Anne. I believe MLA Goodridge will take that one.
Thank you so much for your question. While this is a federal issue, we don't have our Member of Parliament here with us today, but I would recommend that you try contacting his office. His name is MP David Yerdega, and David Yerdega at parl.gc.ca is the email, and they can look into this further for you.
Thank you so much for that. Again, if you wish to ask a question of our panelists, hit *3 on your phone. Our next question comes live on the line from Karen. Karen, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Yes, my question is about essential services. For instance, Dr. Jason Cunningham's office is not allowed to be open because he's considered non-essential, where to those of us who need his services, especially when we're having issues at this time, he is considered essential, especially when it comes to the daily function of chewing. And then my other question is, all the models for COVID have proven to be wrong. They've been off by thousands of numbers. And even when you look at the cases in Alberta, the highest death rate fatality comes with those between 80 years old and above. And then the second highest in Alberta is with 19 out of 76 cases. And the second highest of death is 60 to 79-year-olds with 4 out of 256 cases. What I would like to know is, when are we going to start doing a slow open? We've got to get our businesses back up and running. We cannot be taxed to death after this is over to pay for lost revenue that has come to the city. I understand that there are people scared, but there are things that we can do to start opening to make it safe. For instance, wearing masks when we're out in public, keeping the social distancing rules going in the stores. So those are my questions, and if someone could answer them, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your questions. I believe there were 2 in there. One asking about, I believe, a denturist and whether or not that was an essential service. And the second part, I do believe, was about reopening and getting things back underway and not being taxed. So the first part of that question, I guess, Scott, could you talk about that, please?
Thank you. Karen, I appreciate your question, and what we are aware of is that there are dentists that are open on a very careful basis, I would suggest. And I would reach out to your current denturists to see if they are available. This is a unique situation that we're going through, and the province has given guidelines on what is and what isn't open. But I would reach out to your own. There may even be a on-call that's available for emergencies. And I'm just being passed something here.
There is for emergencies.
Do you mind I can't read that. Sorry.
Hi, it's Emily Leila Goodrich here. Just did some quick research, and the College of Denturists does allow denturists to be open in cases of emergency. So if it's an emergency, I would recommend that you contact your dentist and explain the nature of the emergency.
Thank you so much for those responses. Again, *3 on your phone will get you into the question queue. Our next question comes live on the line from Heather. Heather, your line is open. Please go ahead.
I'd like to know if Curl Lake is going to end the 10 and 10 shift. In reality, it should be like a 6 and 1. These people come home to our home, and 10 and 10 is just, I don't know, doesn't seem logical. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question, Heather. Simon, could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Jill, and thanks, Heather, for the question, and thanks again for the opportunity to address the forum and provide answers. I mean, I won't go through and repeat all of the stringent controls that we have in place around both work at site, people resident in our camps, and also all of the very stringent controls we have around people traveling to our site as well. But suffice it to say, they are extremely stringent and being very closely adhered to as we work closely with the AHS on all those provisions. The specific question of rotation schedule, actually, it's something we are looking at, to be honest, to manage through these very difficult times. We have a range of different situations that we're trying to accommodate, given the for the sort of small critical workforce that we've reduced down to. So it's not the time to be making major structural changes, but we are actually making quite a few flexible changes to accommodate the situation as best we can. Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much for that response. Our next question comes from Anonymous. Anonymous asks, is the property tax deferral automatic, or do you need to apply for it? Jamie, could you address that, please?
Thank you for the question, and it would be automatic. There would be no need to apply for it.
Thank you so much for that, Jamie. Just a reminder for our callers on the phone to please mute your phones when you are not speaking. Thank you so much. Our next question comes live on the line from Robin. Robin, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. I'm just curious when it comes to essential workers. I don't know if it's fact or fiction, but I've heard that as far as residential construction, it has been deemed non-essential, and that's basically what I'm trying to figure out if it's correct or not.
Thank you so much for your question, Robin. MLA Goodridge will take that one.
Hi, thank you, Robin. Really appreciate the question. There is an entire list of essential services on the Alberta.ca COVID-19, but I can confirm that construction work and services, including demolition in industrial, commercial, institutional, as well as residential, has been deemed to be an essential sector.
Thank you so much for that. Again, if you want to ask a question of one of our panelists, please hit *3 on your phone. Our next question comes from Ryan. Ryan asks, can you comment on the stats for local business impacts and an estimate on how many are now closed? Kevin, could you take this, please?
I don't have those specific stats with me today. If you care to leave an email address with one of the moderators afterwards, we can give you that specific stat. We are partnered with the chambers across Alberta to conduct surveys to get specific results of where they're at right now. As far as specific sectors, I can speak to the hotel and tourism sector, because that data has been recently published, and 1/3 of the hotels have closed, and the occupancy rates are below 10%. Right now, that's the only current data that we have.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. And Ryan, if you wanted, you could email townhall@rmwb.ca, just so that we can get your email address and we can get that addressed for you. And MLA Yao would like to also weigh in.
Hi, thank you for the question. Just to be clear, your provincial and federal governments, obviously municipal, are very aware of the impact on small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone in our economy, and all your levels of government are very aware of this and are trying to address this through various supports, from our unemployment insurance to other things for these businesses. But we're maintaining watch on this, and the desire is certainly to blend back towards to answer an earlier question, to get our society back to normal, but it will take time, and people have to be aware this is going to go for months. Not to pull any punches, this will possibly go into the fall. So we'll have to monitor it. Our primary reason for doing all this is to protect our citizens and to ensure that our health system is capable of addressing a large influx of people that require assistance in this. So,
thank you so much. Again, *3 on your phone if you want to ask a question of one of our panelists. Our next question comes from Tim, and this one is for our MLAs. Can either provide an update on the status of the federal government support of the Alberta oil and gas industry as committed by the Prime Minister in March? MLA Goodridge.
Thank you. I wish I could speak for our federal government. It's really disappointing to not see something announced yet, but we remain hopeful, and I know that our Minister of Energy, Sonia Savage, is working diligently and advocating very hard on everyone in this region's behalf to see a robust package put out by the federal government to address our oil and gas sector in this province.
Thank you so much. Again, *3 if you wish to ask a question of one of our panelists. You can read your questions live on the line, or we can read them out for you. Our next question comes from Amoma. Amoma asks, what is the strategy put in place to ensure the municipality can bounce back and not have a population decline due to layoffs? Mayor Scott, could you take that?
Thanks very much for the question. The best way we're going to bounce back is if people follow the rules and follow the AHS guidelines. That's absolutely crucial. Those regions that have fewer cases are obviously going to be in better positioned. Right now, I believe that our region is well positioned because we have the oil sands in our backyard. Not many places have billion-dollar industries in their backyard. But we are facing twin challenges, the challenge of the COVID-19 and the challenge of declining oil prices. So we are going to have some, major work to do to get through this. But if any region can do it, we've been through challenges before, and I'm certain we can get through this challenge. As a municipality, we've set up an economic task force that's going to help small business. We have set up tax deferrals. We've obviously been keeping our projects, we're trying to slate what projects should move forward so that we can fund those as soon as we are ready to move forward. And we've been talking with industry regularly to see what supports they need and how we can assist them going forward. So the challenges are real, the challenges are many, but I think if any region can meet those challenges, it is us.
Thank you so much, Mayor Scott. Our next question comes live on the line from Randall. Randall, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. How are you tonight?
Doing great, thank you.
With the recent cases at Curl Lake, which is mainly a fly-in and fly-out operation, we have several companies that operate within the municipality that also probably high as 95% people that fly into our region and then house within Wood Buffalo. Is there any precautions being taken so that these people coming in from out of province have to isolate before they go to work in our community as they do when they go home?
Thank you so much for your question, Randall. Kareem, could you take that, please?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Randall. I think, Simon touched on a few things, but I'd say in the last 6 weeks or so, our members have taken some pretty aggressive measures to reduce the risk of exposure, and as well as follow the AHS mandated guidance. So as far as, workers, local or not, and whether they're coming by air or road, there are stringent screening procedures before people enter site. This can be in the form of a daily COVID questionnaire or assessment or a temperature check. Workers who arrive by air are given pre-travel and access screening. Workers that are staying at lodges are screened daily for temperature. So those are some of the things that are going on. The other thing I'll add is, if anyone listened to Dr. Hinshaw's update today, one of the comments she made was, she believes that everything is that needs to be done to keep people safe in lodges and in food processing facilities is being done. So that should also give a bit of reassurance coming from the Chief Medical Officer.
Thank you so much for that response, Kareem. If you've participated in previous town halls, you might remember that we were asking some poll questions, and we have another one for you this evening. Tonight's poll, we are asking what your main reason is for tuning into our town halls. Press 1 to receive updates on municipal services. Press 2 to learn about resources that could help me in my situation. Press 3 to receive updates on what AHS or the Government of Alberta is doing. Press 4 to ask a question. Press 5 for none of the above. Again, we would like to know what your main reason is for tuning into these town halls. Press 1 to receive municipal updates. Press 2 to learn about resources to help you. Press 3 to receive updates on what AHS or the Government of Alberta is doing. Press 4 to ask a question, or press 5 for none of the above. Again, a friendly reminder that to our panelists on the line, please remember to mute your phone when you are not speaking. Also want to let you know if you'd like to ask a question, again, please hit *3 on your phone. Our next question comes from Tom. Tom asks, are there any plans to isolate Highway 63 leading to Fort McMurray except for essential services? Scott, could you take this, please?
Thank you for your question. This question's been asked a couple of times, and I understand the concern. It's about people coming up from Edmonton. At this time, my understanding is AHS is not restricting travel, and part of that is because of the goods and groceries and fuel and a number of things that we rely on in the community.
Thank you so much for that response. Our next question comes from Sarah. Sarah asks, what is being done to screen commuters entering town? Is there a plan to screen people, and do you have to quarantine after visiting elsewhere in Alberta? Scott, could you take this, please? MLA Yao will take this.
Everybody should know out there, thank you for the question, that Alberta Health Services is a leader in the world right now in the number of people that we're testing. And we've gotten to the point now where we are testing anyone that shows any symptoms that comes in, as well as all healthcare workers that are attached to this. So the testing in our province is very good. AHS has been working wonderfully. I mean, we were so prepared that we can donate equipment to Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. That is how good Alberta Health Services has been performing. So I hope that gives everyone comfort knowing that not only are we the most prepared, but also the number of people we're being tested, as well as the number of people that are being infected, our numbers are much, much better in other provinces. So we're continuing on with that.
Thank you so much for that response. Again, *3 on your phone if you wish to ask a question of our panelists. We're getting several questions regarding tax deferrals and what people need to do if they don't want to defer their taxes. Jamie, could you address this, please?
Thank you, Jill, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Property taxes, they are deferred until September 2020, so that's the new on time, I guess if I could say that. That wouldn't stop people from paying their taxes regularly. That deferral also comes with waiving the penalties that would be accrued because of a late property tax or a late tax payment, and that's deferred until October 1st, 2020. So this tax deferral applies to all tax classes in the region with the exception of designated industrial properties.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Our next question comes from John. John says, it's been a month since preventative measures were put in place. Is there a timeline for when this will end? What is the forecast? Scott, could you take that, please?
Thank you for your question, and I continue to follow this myself, both from Public Health Agency of Canada, Health Canada, and certainly AHS. In a recent speech, Premier Kenney talked about this and went through the modeling. The modeling that we're seeing from AHS and the Premier is indicating a peak in May. What we want to do is follow the guidelines laid out so that we can flatten that curve. However, I'm suggesting that we'll stick with the direction from AHS, and that being sometime May.
Thank you so much for that, Scott. Our next question comes live on the line from Alufami. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for trying your best to pronounce the name right. So thank you for that. The first question is that I think it was Mayor Scott that when he was responding to a question regarding gas, he gave a phone number and an email address. But he called the numbers and email address once, So I couldn't get it. I want I want you to tell us the number again so that I can write it down. And number two, I want to believe that it's not everybody, not all residents of Buffalo that has access to internet, television, and radio. I want to ask, is there a dedicated line for residents of Buffalo to call to ask any question regarding COVID-19? And the last one, numbers now, the reason for joining this conference. But I discovered that I have about 2 or 3 options why I joined this conference, because this is my first time of participating, and is to have updates regarding the area where I'm living and also to ask questions. So there should be another option to pick 1 or 2 of the questions. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate listening to all of you.
Thank you so much for that. The first part of that question, I believe, had to do with getting info on COVID-19 and a number that you could call. So we'll ask Scott to take that first.
Thank you very much for your question. And we guide everyone to 811 on your phone, and you'll be connected with AHS who can help you with that.
Thank you so much for that, Scott. And I believe the second part of the question was the phone number that Mayor Scott had talked about for gas. So go ahead.
Yes, the consumer complaint line. So if you see an issue with a consumer product, including gasoline, and you want to make a complaint, there's a Province of Alberta number. It's 1-877-427-4088, or you can email ciu.north@gov.ab.ca.
Thank you so much, Mayor Scott. Please hit *3 on your phone if you wish to ask a question, and MLA Goodridge also wanted to weigh in on the gas.
No, actually, I'd like to weigh in on the information for COVID. Please do not call 811 unless you are displaying some kind of a symptom, because that is our HealthLink phone number. If you do not have access to internet, there are lots of resources. Almost every news program is broadcasting Dr. Dina Hinshaw's updates every day, as well as the radio is sharing a lot of the information on it. But please only call 811 if you are needing medical assistance, because we have only so many people on those lines. So please only call 811 if you are needing medical advice.
Thank you so much for that. Our next question comes from Taylor. Taylor asks, why hasn't the RMWB taken a bolder approach to helping small businesses by waiving taxes rather than deferring them? Mayor Scott, could you touch on that, please?
Yeah, we've taken a very bold approach. We've set up a task force to come forward with recommendations, and they have just gotten going. So we're expecting them to come forward with recommendations in the near term, and that's going to be composed of business leaders across the community and several people from industry. The deferral of taxes is really an initial step. It's important to signal, I think, the business community that we want to make sure that they succeed through this challenge, and that's an initial step. Doesn't mean that that's the only step or the final step, but it's important to take steps as we go. And as this crisis unfolds, we'll be taking further steps.
And Kevin would also like to add to that.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, the task force has recently met and figured out how they want to address and work out their recommendations. But we're always seeking input, and so if the caller has a suggestion that would like the task force to consider and put a recommendation forward, an email to info@choosewoodbuffalo.ca. That's info@choosewoodbuffalo.ca. That's a great way to get your input in, and there will be opportunities for further participation with the task force as well, and that'll be publicized through social media and local media.
Thank you. Again, *3 on your phone if you wish to ask a question of one of our panelists. Our next question is anonymous, and they ask, homeless individuals are traveling on buses in groups just for shelter. What is the municipality doing to address this, as it is a risk for others needing to use transit? Jamie, could you take that, please?
Thank you, Jill, and great question. Some of the things we're doing, of course, is practicing social distancing, taping our seats to illustrate proper social distancing, as well as digital signage on the front of the buses saying when they're full. If you see instances where that's not happening or the rules aren't being followed, you can let us know through the pulse line 743-7000.
Thank you, Jamie. Our next question comes from Graham. Graham asks, I know we are really focused on COVID-19, but what are we doing to prepare for the river breakup? Scott, could you take that?
Excellent question, Graham, and thank you very much. We have a dedicated team at the Regional Emergency Coordination Center. They're working with various departments within the RMWB, such as Public Works and Engineering. We continue to work with Alberta Parks, and there's modeling that's being done and measurements. We actually had one of our staff out today at different sites watching those areas. So we continue to work on that, and in the event that there is any flooding, we've got a strategy for our media that has been out and about now. We've also started contingency planning in the event that we had to evacuate portions and set up registration and reception centers that would conform to AHS guidelines, and looking to get people quickly back into the homes after that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. Our next question is anonymous. Anonymous asks, why would we open golf courses and not gyms and parks? Jamie, could you take this?
Thanks, Jill. Golf courses and parks remain closed. As Chief Medical Officer Henshaw has indicated, golf courses are not an essential service and they'll remain closed. Parks and gyms will also remain closed for the same reasons.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Our next question is anonymous, and they ask, is the community doing anything to help small businesses? My insurance can't help my business. Kevin, could you take that?
Yes, thank you, Jill. Yes, as the Mayor previously mentioned, we've established a task force which consists of business and community leaders to tackle the problem of how can we ensure that businesses remain successful and can maintain viability during this public health emergency. But I do need to underscore that the recommendations that we come up with and even the actions that the municipality and the federal government and the provincial government are all undertaking, albeit significant, this is a very, very difficult time. And so not all businesses are going to come out of this intact. But we will make every reasonable effort we can to ensure their viability. The important thing is that we maintain a situation where the region's local economy can withstand the change in economic activity because of the public health restrictions. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next question comes from Mark. Mark asks, will we be putting more measures in place now that the weather is nicer and people are starting to not follow social distancing guidelines? Scott, could you take this?
Thank you. I do know that Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Henshaw, continues to monitor the situation. I would look to her for guidance on any changes to the physical distancing and any other guidelines in place.
Thank you, Scott. Our next question comes from Tyler. Tyler asks, for those who want to volunteer or donate, how can they help? Scott, could you take that one as well, please?
Thank you. My first thought is we've got a number of agencies in town that do require volunteers, and I believe through Fuse Social you're able to partner with some of those, and their website would help you determine which agency you could align with.
Thank you so much, Scott. Our next question comes live on the line from Michael. Michael, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I guess it's a two-part question. I live in Fort McMurray and I commute every day back and forth to site. Now, my job requires me to be in most of the buildings on site in the run of a week. So my question is, are fly-in, fly-out workers being restricted to site? And because of what I have to do on site, I follow all the protocols, but because of what I have to do, am I a bigger risk to Fort McMurray? Should I be taking more stringent measures to protect myself and others?
Thank you so much for that, Michael. I believe you're asking about traveling to and from site and fly in and fly out, correct?
Yeah, you couldn't hear any of that?
It's just a little low, so if maybe you could just quickly repeat the questions and just really project into your phone. That would be helpful.
Okay, my job requires me to travel back and forth to site, but the job also requires me to be in every building on site to do what I have to do. Now, my question is, are fly-in, fly-out workers restricted to site when they're here? Or as well, I mean, am I a bigger risk to the community of Fort McMurray because of what I have to do, even though I'm following all the protocols? Is there anything else I need?
Thank you so much for that, Michael. We heard you loud and clear that time. Kareem, could you take that, please?
Sure. I think I'll take the first one related to FIFO, and then maybe Scott can take the second part, because I'm not. But so let me try to address your fly-in, fly-out, or drive-in, drive-out. So the general rule is that if folks are traveling by air or by vehicle, by air to site, the expectation is that they stay at site during their shift. There are going to be anomalies because some people self-commute, but the general rule of thumb is that if people are being transported by air to site, the expectation is they stay on site for the duration of their work shift.
Thank you so much for that, and I believe Scott will take the second part.
Thank you for your question. And all workers should follow AHS, OHS, and workplace requirements. I look even at myself as I enter my workplace, making sure that I fill out the screening form and follow the guidelines myself, ensuring the protection of all of my staff.
Thank you, Scott. Our next question comes from Andrew. Andrew asks, Mayor Scott, how are you doing since your accident?
I'm doing well, and thanks for asking, but I really want people to focus on taking care of themselves, not worrying about their mayor. The most important thing is that we make sure that this community is staying as safe as it can be, and that we're ready to bounce back from that.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. So we have time for just a couple more questions. Our next question is anonymous. Anonymous says, I've come back from the USA and need to isolate for 14 days. After 14 days, can I see my grandkids? Scott, could you take that, please?
Thank you, and I can appreciate that you're, sounds like you're doing the right thing by isolating, and I would suggest that after that 14-day clearance, there should be no reason why you can't see your grandchildren.
I would just also add, it's Emily Leila Goodridge here, that we are asking people to stay in their homes as much as possible and to try and stay with their subset of people. And so visiting your grandkids, try doing it through windows and virtually as much as possible so as to both protect yourselves but also your grandchildren and their families. And so we're asking as many people to stay in their family units as possible. And that was the request of Dr. Dina Hinshaw to try and limit and curb the spread of COVID-19.
Thank you, MLA Goodridge, for that. I appreciate it. We're on to our last question here. Gavin asks, is the region planning to get face masks for public use like other cities have? Scott, could you take this? I can repeat the question. Is the region planning to get face masks for public use like other cities have?
Thank you. While we do have a team that's continuing to make sure that our first responders and supporting agencies have face masks, this time, no, not the public.
Thank you so much, Scott. We've actually got one more question that we've let slip in here. So our next question comes from Tyler, who's live on the line. Tyler, your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm just looking at a Global News article here, and I was wondering if you could verify the content here that's saying there are now 12 confirmed cases related to the Curl site, where 2 are still at site and 10 are off. Is this something that can be verified?
Thank you so much for your question, Tyler. Simon, could you comment, please?
Yeah, I can, Jill. Thanks, and thanks for the question, Scott. Lucky I didn't hang up. I thought we were nearly done there. No, certainly I can confirm that information. As I mentioned earlier, what happened yesterday was we had our first confirmed case of COVID-19 at site, and today we had a second. So that's the 2 cases that you're seeing referenced there. And then I also mentioned that we have a small number and have had a small number of cases that we've been tracking through time that involve people who are away from site but may have some connection to the site, and that these are typically people who are actually all over the country, and maybe employees or contractors or visitors or somebody that we've deemed has had a contact with the site, and many of them in all likelihood have the situation they're in has nothing to do with the site. But we've taken a very comprehensive approach to track those, and what we've done today in the spirit of transparency, in addition to reporting cases that we have at site, we're also letting people know about other cases that we are monitoring out of an abundance of caution as part of our approach. So that's the 10 that you're referring to there, Scott.
Thank you so much, Simon. Before we wrap up this evening, Mayor Scott would like to say a few words. Mayor Scott?
I just want to thank everybody who's following the AHS guidelines. There's a long way to go in this, as you heard earlier tonight. We're at least looking at May. I want to encourage anyone who didn't get their question through to email us at townhall@rmwb.ca. And I want to thank Layla Goodrich and Tanny Yao for joining us this evening. It's very important to have their participation. And once again, thanks to all those who are on the front lines of this, including our healthcare workers. You have the support of your community. That's all the doctors, nurses, and others who are working at the Northern Lights Hospital. We're certainly grateful for all you're doing. And thank you to all those who are performing essential services in our region. We deeply appreciate that you are keeping the region going. So thank you to all of them.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And now MLA Tanny Yao would like to say a few words.
Yes, I just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you to Mayor and Council and the Regional Municipality for inviting us to partake in this. And on Layla, as for Layla and myself, I just thank you all for that. And our final message, we just want it to be that if everybody here in the community can show discipline with the social distancing and other measures, and we can help flatten the curve, we might be able to facilitate a transition to normal quicker than many other jurisdictions. So that is the hope and that is the desire. So please, everybody, follow this religiously, and maybe we can get through this quicker. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So we recognize that due to high call volumes, you may not have had your question addressed. Please visit alberta.ca for the most up-to-date information from the provincial government. If you have questions regarding municipal services and our response to COVID-19, please email your question, as Mayor Scott said, to townhall@rmwb.ca. If you are joining us online and would like to be added to our Town Hall call-out, or if you would like to be removed from the call-out list, please call Pulse at 780-743-7000. Again, that's 743-7000 and provide them with your phone number. That's all the time we have for this week's Town Hall. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time to engage with residents this evening. Please join us for our next Town Hall 1 week from tonight, April 23rd at 6:10 p.m. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe and have a wonderful evening.